My name's David Armour, and usually you see the first slide is the names of the people, but actually one of the most important things for us here is to let you know that if you're interested in working with our team to provide feedback about Azure Stack as we go forward, please go out to that URL. It's like a 3 or 4 question form that you fill out, and our team will get back to you, and we'll schedule some time to sit down and chat on a Skype call. So please go ahead and do that. So I'll go back and introduce myself and my co-speaker, Scott. We both are program managers on the Azure Stack team. And we are going to show you how awesome IaaS runs on Azure Stack. Now, whenever I do these kind of sessions, I'm never 100% sure, what the background of the people in my audience is. So I imagine some of you are experts in Azure, experts in Azure IaaS. Others of you maybe have never used Azure. Maybe you come from like a Hyper-V background or a VMware background. You're like, hey, what's this cloud thing? What do VMs look like in there? So you're probably more the speaker or the kind of group of people that I'm going to be speaking to today. But I'll have a little bit of extra secrets and tidbits in there for the Azure Power users as well. So really one of my goals today is really showing you how Azure extends into your own data center through Azure Stack to allow you to build out hybrid cloud solutions. And I'm also going to showcase to you the really incredible IaaS capabilities that you get with Azure Stack straight from Azure. It's amazing when you get this thing installed and you start to use it, how much power is in it and how much you can do with it. At the end of the talk, I hope you leave here realizing that when we talk about Azure and Azure Stack, we're talking about a model and not a location. And what we're trying to do with Azure Stack by making it consistent with Azure is allow you to make the location decision after you've put together all of the code in the project. So you don't have to make that decision ahead of time and say, oh, if it's here, I have to do this, or if it's there, I have to do that. It's rather something that you can make at the very end of your decision-making process. Also, I really want to have you leave here seeing the power of Azure Stack that you can put into your own data center. In fact, many of you might not know that you can download the Azure Stack Development Kit. You can install that on a single server. It's a server that you provide. You can pick whatever vendor you want for that. It takes about 3 hours to install. I have one, actually everyone on my team has one. And every day I come into work, I'm just so excited because I have this server under my desk and it has an entire Azure region dedicated to me and I can do whatever I want in it. So go ahead and check that out. And then I also really want you to leave with just the key takeaway of that Azure Stack IaaS is consistent with Azure IaaS. And that's important because you want to build solutions around that. All right. So I went to Jeffrey Snover's session the other day, and I got this from him. Azure Stack is new, so don't project your past on it. A lot of folks that I talk to have been running virtualization for a long, long, long time. When the cloud came along, people still, they use virtual machines, but they use it in a very different way. Developers have different needs than traditional infrastructure workloads. And what attracts them to the cloud? Well, those same features are in Azure Stack. So I hope you leave today realizing that, hey, maybe I shouldn't just think about taking my old stuff and trying to cram it into Azure Stack, but rather think about, hey, I need to go through a digital transformation, rethink the way that I have my legacy apps, and how do I make them something that I can be cloud modern with. So, key takeaway here. All right, so I just want to tell you a couple things. I couldn't put hard numbers on here because I get in trouble with some of our folks internally, but there's a couple key learnings that we get from watching how people use Azure. And these are probably very different than what you might expect if you're a traditional administrator running a virtualization environment. Did you know that in Azure, Windows and Linux are equally popular? Most VMs that are deployed in Azure are not deployed through the portal. They're deployed through an API instead. What does that tell you? It tells you that developers using the cloud, they prefer to automate their deployments so that they can get consistent outcomes out of that. This is why they do deployments multiple times a week, maybe multiple times a day. They can't do that unless they can fully automate that. And that's why when you go to a cloud, you'll find that most of the VMs that are there were created through an API. And this is what attracts them to the cloud, because trying to deploy your VM 3 or 4 times a day inside of a virtualization environment is very difficult because the APIs just aren't as easy to use. Many of the VMs in Azure are used only for a short duration and then they're discarded, which makes sense if you think about it, because when you use Azure, you're paying by the hour. And so you're going to just run it as you need it, and when you don't need it, you turn it off or you get rid of it. And that goes along with the next one. Most of the VMs, they're stopped when they're not in use because it incurs a cost. Now, if you're running Exchange on your virtualized environment and you're thinking, hey, I want to move that to Azure Stack, remember, you're moving from a fixed cost of something you're going to pay per hour. And if that workload is going to run for 5 years without stop, you might want to think about whether that's the right decision for you, okay? Also, most VMs in Azure are not backed up. If you think about it, they're getting deployed every day. Why would you go through the trouble of backing this thing up if it's getting deployed? Or it's getting shut off when it's not in use. What's the big deal about backing it up? So we can actually look at the VMs in Azure and see that very few of them actually have backup extensions installed into them. In fact, all that I can think of, Azure PaaS services actually run on top of IaaS. And they get deployed frequently as well. I think some of the RPs in Azure, one of them in particular, was deployed 650 times last year. So they run on IaaS as well. By the way, IaaS is growing incredibly fast in Azure. It's astounding. I'm sure there are probably more VMs created in Azure than in traditional virtualization environments added up around the world. It's amazing the growth that we see there. And also, one of the things, I'm talking now to the administrators, is for the operations of Azure, one of the highest costs of us running Azure is not the facilities, it's actually support. And so when we look at operations of Azure, we're always looking at how do we drive down our support costs. And I think this is probably going to be true of you. When you run a cloud, you're going to want to figure out how do you lower your support costs. And one of the real advantages of using Azure Stack is we've already learned how to support huge amounts of customers, and we know what the most common support calls are. And we've put features into Azure that you get in Azure Stack to help you lower your support calls. So because we learn at scale, when you deploy Azure Stack, you get the benefits of that learning inside of your environment as well. And we'll show you some of that. All right, cloud for us is a model. It's a way of doing things. It's an API set. And you get to choose where you want to have that model run. With Azure and Azure Stack, you can choose whether to have that run in the public cloud, in your own data center, or a data center that's managed by one of our partners. And really, when we talk about Azure and Azure Stack, we're talking about consistency throughout the stack. From the portal and the API, we share that between Azure and Azure Stack. So when in a few minutes, I start to demo the portal and I show a little bit of PowerShell, it's the same. You don't have to learn 2 different things. You get to learn Azure, and then you get to make the decision, is it going to be Azure in the public cloud, or is it going to be Azure in my data center? Below that is the resource manager. The resource manager grants access to the services that the cloud provides. That's consistent between Azure and Azure Stack. So if you want to set permissions on who can get to what, you can do that at the Azure Resource Manager layer, and it's done the same way, no matter where you run it. And then finally, underneath the Resource Manager, we have a number of services that we provide. Azure has a growing number of those. We have a large number of them in Azure Stack as well. And that will continue to grow. Azure Stack, of course, will always be a little bit behind Azure, because what our philosophy is we want to learn first at scale, and then once we've gotten those learnings, then we want to work on getting those put into Azure Stack. And then finally, all of this runs on top of cloud infrastructure. In Azure, they run it at a much larger scale than what you need to for Azure Stack, and that's one of the key things that differentiates Azure from Azure Stack, is that Azure Stack can be run on a much smaller scale. And we have a number of other sessions. I'm not going to go into that today, but there's a number of Azure Stack sessions that get into what that cloud infrastructure exactly looks like. Because they're the same, we have consistency. And that means you can plan just for Azure and then make the decision about what location this Azure is going to be in, whether it's going to be the public cloud, your own data center, or at a service provider or partner's data center. Okay. So when we talk about IaaS, IaaS virtual machines are not the same as virtualized machines. There's a number of differences, and I'm going to cover them today. All right, and through demos. And I'm a little bit nervous today because I'm only going to be presenting demos. So if I have any problem, then I'm going to really be extra nervous. So anyway, first of all, we perfect IaaS at scale running in Azure. We run one of the largest clouds in the world. If we didn't fully operate that in a self-service manner, we would have so many calls from our customers to say, hey, can you put this VM on this VLAN? Well, we can't do that kind of stuff, right? We would have calls all the time. So everything in Azure IaaS is a fully self-service experience for people, and it's all defined through a set of APIs which can be fully automated. All right. I mentioned earlier also, because we run it at such large scale, all of the things that we've learned about supporting it, we give to you as the operator to lower your support costs. All right, another key thing that makes it different than standard virtual machines, it's actually designed for modern cloud development. Some of the things that you're going to see in there is, and I'll demo today, is everything can be done through an API. And most everything can be done through the portal as well. What we find from watching users in Azure is people try the features out for the first time in the portal, and after they get familiar with it, then they start to learn how they go about automating it. So it's very important for us to have a consistent portal experience between Azure and Azure Stack so that your users can learn all of the stuff that's available, and then they can go focus on how they go about automating it. And that's why today, when I go through my demos, I'm going to be showing you primarily what's in the portal, because I figure you're probably learning this for the first time. All right, and there are a number of things beyond just plain virtual machines that we have, and I'll highlight some of those as we go through today. We have things like object storage, which allows your developers to reference information through a URL instead of a file path. This is really important if you're scripting and you want to, let's say, display an image, you're going to want to have a URL for that image. And object storage allows you to set permissions and access to those files so that only the right people get to it that you want to get at it. I brought Scott along with me today. He's our cloud networking expert. Cloud networking has to be fully self-service. Users of Azure can't be dependent on the Azure networking team for doing everything that they want to get done. They have to be able to do that completely in a self-service manner. And I'll also show you later today serverless functions and containers and a lot of other exciting things. All right, and then we have, of course, it's a great platform for PaaS services, and if I get some time, we'll show you some of those PaaS services running on Azure Stack. And also, it's a platform for cloud-ready solutions, where you can go into the marketplace and there's pre-built things ready for you to deploy. You don't have to be an expert on it because it's already an automated template that will get these things ready and running for you in your data center. All right, with that, I'm going to start to do some of the demos. Of course, my machine I got to log into here. All right, so this is Azure Stack. And the first thing, whoops, I want to point out is, see, it doesn't say Microsoft Azure, it says Microsoft Azure Stack. And the other thing I want to point out is, look at that URL. It's not azure.com. It's actually running in our corporate network inside of Microsoft. And then the other thing I want to point out is, look how I'm logged into Azure Stack. I'm logged into it with my corporate identity. In fact, I can log into the Azure portal with the exact same identity. This is very handy for your developers. They don't have to keep track of all of these different identities that they have. It's available right there for you, right accessible through a portal. All right, so let me quickly go through, if you've used Azure at all, or if you haven't, there is a marketplace of items to get started. So I'm going to go focus on compute here. The first thing I want to point out is you see I got Ubuntu in there. I have a SQL server that I can deploy. I have a couple flavors of Windows Server. I have CentOS in there. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy a SUSE VM. Again, I think Jeffrey said, well, I won't quote him. I'll just say we take every type of workload that developers require to be cloud ready, and we make them available to you in the marketplace. So let me go through and create a new Linux VM here. It's pretty simple. Give it a second to load up. Okay. So let me just call it session. And I'll give it a username. And I think instead of the SSH, I'll do the password. It's a little bit quicker. All right, and then this thing here, I'm going to zoom in for you in case you can't see it. Resource group. This is an important concept in Azure. If you're new to Azure, I just got to point it out real quick. A resource group is a collection of related things. When I create a virtual machine, I get more than just a virtual machine. I'm going to get the related network and storage artifacts around it. And then I can manage them together as one. So that's a really important concept. So I'm going to go ahead and use my existing resource group. Let me pull that up. All right. Next thing is, I have to pick a size. Now, this is different than standard virtualization. In standard virtualization, it's like made to order. Hey, I want 3 procs. Or, hey, I want 194 gigs of memory. Like, you can do whatever you want in virtualization. But that's not the way we do things in the cloud. In the cloud, it's about standardization. And standardization is important because the outcomes that come out of it have to be predictable if you're deploying something every day. So you can see I have a number of Azure sizes here. I'll just quickly show you by zooming in case you can't see. I have like DS sizes, I have A sizes, I have D sizes, I have F sizes. Let me quick show you. I can even say, hey, I only want, I don't even want to think about it unless it has like 4 cores, or maybe I want it to have like 11 cores, and I can get all of the crazy sizes that are super big and that I can run inside of my Azure Stack. Okay, so I'm not going to create such a big one because I have other people on my team that are presenting right now, and I don't want to take up all the capacity on that server. So, okay, next thing is I have a whole bunch of settings that I can take care of. I'm not going to go into what these all are because I'm going to show you a VM that's already deployed. So I'll just take all the defaults there. All right, the last thing I want to show you before I deploy this is I can click on that link there and it says view the template. Now this is important because when people go through the portal for the first couple of times, they're just kind of learning what's available. But if it's a cloud developer, they're going to want to know how to automate this thing. And so this wizard shows me the template that I can use to redeploy this thing exactly the same way over and over again. Now I know if you're you don't come from the development world, you're like, oh my goodness, that's super complicated, but it's like a config file. I mean, it's not that hard to get over. So it's basically saying these are the things that need to be configured for my virtual machine. So you can pick up that language, it's JSON, and learn how to describe your VM. If you're familiar with PowerShell, you know, hey, look at this. We even show you how to deploy it inside of PowerShell. Whoops. So there are a lot of ways for you to get ahead and start learning how to automate things. This is what makes cloud IaaS different than virtualization. The focus is on automation and deployment, not running something for 5 years and forgetting about it in some back room somewhere or on some host. Okay, so I got through that. I'm going to actually go to back to this. I'm going to not actually deploy it. I'm going to go to a virtual machine that I already have. Let's see. Let me pick the right resource group here. Okay, so remember when I was deploying my VM, I had to pick a resource group, and I have a number of them already created. But I'm going to go ahead and pick this IaaS demos one. I have a Windows development box here. You can see I can get all the metrics out of it that's going on. So I'm going to go through some of these things that are really cool that you get with Azure IaaS. The first thing here is called an activity log. You know, when you work on a team of people that work together, you don't always know what your teammate did while you were gone. And they might have really messed things up. Well, guess what? We've learned that by supporting all of our customers in Azure, that it's really important to have an activity log of everything that's happened. So I can go through and find out that my colleague Scott went ahead and like rebooted something when I wasn't around. So activity log is in there, very cool. That's in Azure. You also find it in Azure Stack. Well, how do I get my teammates into this so I can manage it? Well, we do that through access control. And through access control, I can simply go in here and I can add new users that I want to bring into the system. So you can see I have a number of other users that I can bring in. One of my colleagues, Andrew Westgarth, he's the one that works on app services, bringing that into Azure Stack. I can add him here, and he can go right in, and also when he logs into the portal, he'll see this virtual machine available for him to manage. Pretty cool. All self-service. I don't have to call up some administrator to add another member to my team. I can manage that myself. All right, next really cool thing. Tags. Well, this is another thing that we learned from supporting Azure. You know, within a team, sometimes they have lots and lots of VMs, and it's very complicated to figure out which VM does what, or who owns this virtual machine, or what purpose does it have. So I can use tags to do things like, oh, I'm going to put the support contact in here. And I'm going to make it, oh, there, I'm going to make it be Bob at abc.com, something like that. All right, so now you can see I have a support contact. I'll zoom in so you can see that. And now whenever somebody goes to this VM, if they want to know who to support, you can put it on there. A lot of people do this for tracking cost centers and a number of other things. I'm sure you guys are more creative than me to think about other ways to use this. Okay, I'm going to just quickly go through these. Availability set is how you define how you want this VM to be treated when there's an outage. Sometimes you have 3 VMs that work together, and you want to make sure that they don't all end up on the same host, so that if that host dies, you don't lose all 3 VMs. An availability set is a way for you to say that these VMs need to be treated as together, which means operationally they have to be on different hosts so that there isn't an outage for that. Disks, I can go through here and add disks. I can remove disks. If I'm running like a database server and I need to expand my storage, I go through here to do that. I'm going to cover extensions in a little bit, and I'll cover network interfaces in a little bit. Resize is a really important thing. Sometimes you don't need to scale out, you need to scale up, and you need to add more processors or memory. We've learned that you have to do this in Azure, and so we have this feature in Azure Stack. So I can go from 1 core to 4 cores if I need to do that. All right, so let me get back. Locks. This is a super handy feature. Another one that we've learned from running Azure with many customers. People make mistakes. People on your team make mistakes. Sometimes they delete that VM that should not have been deleted. Well, how do you prevent that from happening? Well, we have this feature called locks, and so I can go ahead and add a lock. Maybe I can call it prod, don't touch, all right? And I can say the lock type is on delete, right? And then I can say stay away. So I'm not going to actually set the lock on there because then I can't do my later demo. But you get the idea. You can put locks on these VMs and make them read-only, or you can prevent them from accidentally getting deleted. And that saves us a support call because you made a mistake. All right, so let me go on a little bit more. Diagnostics. You know, if you're supporting your own team, you're maybe the ops guy on the DevOps team, it's really important for you to be able to get logs and metrics and find out how this virtual machine is running. So let me just give you an idea by zooming in here, all the stuff that you can do. We have like performance counters, event logs, you can get crash dumps, boot diagnostics, lots of things that are available to you. All right, and then what is boot diagnostics? Well, that's a pretty interesting feature. Sometimes your VM doesn't. Well, I didn't even expect this. This is awesome. I actually got one that's like still shutting down. Look at that. I guess I'm not going to use that VM later. All right, so you can see what's actually on the screen, which is pretty handy. Okay. For Linux VMs, you can get the boot up log, and I'll show you that in a second. Okay, number 1 support call in Azure is what? I forgot my password. All right, so what did we do? Well, we added a change password or feature inside of Azure Stack. So I can go right in here if I forgot my password and I can reset it. Pretty handy feature, heavily used, saves both our customers and our support teams a lot of effort. And then finally, one I have to cover here, redeploy. Redeploy sometimes is needed because maybe something happened in the virtual machine that allows you can't RDP to the machine, and you just kind of need to reset the VM. Redeploy basically pulls the virtual machine off of that host, brings it back to the template state, and then redeploys it to another host so you can get up and running. This is another one that we implemented as a way to reduce support costs, and it's available to you in Azure Stack. Okay. So I want to go back to extensions, but I better not use this VM because I noticed in boot diagnostics it's not in a good state. So I'm going to go pick a different one. Let's go to my Linux dev box. Okay, and I'm going to go to the extensions here. Okay, so extensions is a way for you to manage inside the virtual machine without needing to log into that virtual machine. I mean, if we're truly automated, why would we require you to log in and manually enter some commands to actually get something done? So Azure and also Azure Stack provides these extensions for you to get into the virtual machine and configure the virtual machine from the cloud itself. And so you can see here I have the Docker extension installed. So, which I will demonstrate how we take advantage of in just a second here, as soon as I get my mouse back doing what I want it to do. Okay. All right, so in addition to a Docker extension, we have this thing called custom script for Linux. We have extensions, by the way, for Windows as well. We have like anti-malware. We have custom script for Windows, and I see my MVP for PowerShell up here. We have desired state configuration extension as well. So I'm going to go ahead and add this extension inside this VM. Now this will take a couple minutes to run, So I'm going to slowly reveal to you what it is that I'm actually doing. So I'm going to pick the file, the script file, and I'm going to tell it what to do here. So I want it to run demo 1 once it gets installed or put into that VM. And that's going to kick off this deployment. It's going to run for a little while. So let me quickly show you what it is that I'm doing. There is an open source project called Portainer, which gives you a web UI on top of Docker. So, and it actually can be deployed as a container into that Docker host. So that's actually what I'm doing here. You can see I'm pulling that container down into this virtual machine, and I'm setting up that container. You can also see that I have it running on, it naturally wants to run on port 9000, but I am going to run it on port 80. Now, one of the things about self-service VMs in the cloud is I need to be able to manage the network, including the firewall rules. So I need to now open a firewall port for port 80, and I'll show you how easy that is to do. So let me go out here to back to my VM. You'll notice that there's a thing here called network interfaces. This is the name of it. I can click on that. Inside of the network interfaces, once that loads, I should be a little more patient here. There we go. There's this thing called network security groups. This is where you manage your firewall rules. So let me do a couple extra clicks here. Come on. There we go. All right, so I have created, well, I got to change it. I'm going to change it to HTTP because I want it to be on port. Oh, actually, I want to make a new one. Sorry about this. Let me make a new one. All right, let's just call it 80. I don't know. And I'll choose the port or the service to be HTTP. All right. And then oh, you know what? I don't want to do. I want to do custom. Oh no, I just want HTTP. Sorry about this. All right. So while that's creating, I'm going to go back to the virtual machine. So I'm going to go back out of here. One more click. All right, so I'm going to go to my virtual machine here, and I hope this works. We'll see. Okay, this virtual machine has an IP address, which I'm going to copy here. And hopefully during this time, Portainer has loaded. Oh, yay, it loaded. So the first time I need to, all right. Okay, so now what Portainer is, it allows me to add additional containers through a web UI from the community of containers that already exist out there. And you can see one of those containers is SQL Server on Linux, which is kind of a cool idea. So why don't we go ahead and put that on there? I need the SA password. Let's call it like Azure Stack Rocks, something like that. Okay, and then I need to actually do some advanced rules here. 1433, okay, we're good. And so what this is going to do is it's going to go out and pull down the Microsoft SQL Server on Linux container and run it right on this Docker host that I have running on my Ubuntu image. So did that not kick off? Did I not click create? Oh, I see it moving. Oh! All right, well, I guess we'll come back to that later. All right, so you get the idea. I didn't have to go into the VM. I didn't have to SSH into that machine to do anything. I could simply issue commands through the extension. And one of those really handy things about Docker is there's a great community of containers, including one that allows you to have a web UI to manage that. And so your users, your developers, they don't even need to SSH into these machines. They can have a full automation experience, something that you would not find with your VMs that you run on Hyper-V or VMware. All right, I got to keep moving here. I got to give Scott some time. Okay, so the next thing is one extension is really cool, and I got to show it to you. And that is the SQL extension. So let me go in here. Previously, I deployed SQL Server from the marketplace. And so this is a Windows Server VM that has SQL Server pre-installed in it. But if I go here and look at the extensions, you'll see that I have an extension called SQL IaaS extension. Now what this does is it allows me to do some additional things that I can't do to just a plain old VM because it has SQL installed inside it. So you can see I get additional user interface through this. I can get, for example, my storage usage, how to connect to it. I can go ahead and set the ports. I can do automated patching and automated backup all through this user interface. Super cool. In Azure, actually, if you go and deploy SQL, you have two options, right? You can deploy SQL as a template that installs it as a virtual machine inside of your subscription, or you can choose the fully managed SQL server that Microsoft manages for you. We call that Azure SQL. That's not in Azure Stack yet, but stay tuned. But for now, you can deploy this virtual machine into your subscription, and you get these enhanced levels of manageability that come along with the extension. All right. Pretty cool. All right, next thing I want to show you, as this is deploying, I'm going to switch over to a different tab here. Okay, quick starts. So I talked a lot about automation. There's a really cool way to automate without having to know a lot about how to author something. And that's what we call quick starts. So you notice I clicked on this template deployment. Template deployment allows you to, you can go ahead and write your own deployment, which I think only a couple of people in this room actually are experts at. And it's probably pretty daunting. But the good thing is, we have already provided a whole bunch of quick start templates. I think it's like 60 or something like that, 70 maybe. So let me zoom in real quick here so you get an idea of what we're talking about. I can click up here to quick start template, and you can see I have a whole bunch of pre-built templates that I can use. In fact, one of those templates that I'm going to pick here is the Docker Swarm template. Docker Swarm template comes straight from the Azure Container Service Engine. Now, you guys probably aren't super familiar with this, but the Azure Container Service that runs inside of Azure, the engine that creates the templates that deploys those containers is actually open source. And you can go and run it, and it will spit out templates for you. And you can take those templates and deploy them into Azure, or you can deploy them into Azure Stack. So one of these templates is for Docker Swarm, and we're working on bringing to you Kubernetes and Mesosphere eventually as well. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy this. So I click OK. And you can see it populates the whole template for me over here. I can zoom in if I wanted to and look at all of the resources it's going to deploy. If you know those icons, you'll get to learn them over time. I can see there's a load balancer in there, there's a NIC in there, there's a scale set in there, there's a availability zone, a whole bunch of really cool resources that all get created by this template. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what you do to do that. The really cool thing is once you got the template, well, it creates a whole wizard for you to deploy this thing. So I can simply fill out the information here. It's all very straightforward. I'm not going to spend a lot of time filling it out. And I can deploy this template, and I can have a Docker Swarm up and running, which, in fact, I've already pre-done. So I'm going to quickly run over and show you that. Cluster 1 has the full swarm deployed. And the reason I want to show you this is because I mentioned it inside of a resource group, there's so much more than a virtual machine. And I just want to highlight some of those things. We have storage accounts where the disks are kept. We have a public IP address which can be managed. We have a load balancer. I have this scale set, and I got to just take a second to point out what a scale set is. You know, in the cloud, things have to be elastic. Now, this isn't always the case when you're running a Hyper-V or VMware, right? When you deploy a VM, it's kind of a big deal in virtualization. But in the cloud, this has got to be something that happens instantly, because as my users demand more and more, I need to grow along with them, right? And what a scale set is it's a factory for printing out identical virtual machines. And so in this particular scale set, I have 2 virtual machines. But man, when the load comes out and increases, I can simply say, hey, I don't want 2, I want 4. And because I have the full cookbook on how to create those virtual machines, they can be spun up on demand. Very cool way to scale to meet your customers, something that you only find in a cloud. So let me just quickly show you how easy that is to scale out this scale set, if it loads for me. Come on, wake up. Here we go. All right, so you can see right here, I have a really easy button called scaling. I can tie this actually to rules. If I had this hooked up to, let's say, App Insights or something like that, I can have App Insights call the API to scale this thing out, but I'm going to show you what you would do to get it in the UI. Wow, this is super easy. Look at, I have a slider bar. How easy is that? So let me go ahead and make it 23. Oh, I better not do that. My teammates will kill me. Let's make it 5. All right, so I click on that, and what's going to happen is 3 more instances are going to be created in that scale set, and when they come out, they're going to be identical. And we know that it will be the same because it's all automated by the cloud platform. I don't have to even worry about that kind of stuff. It's taken care of for me. All right, with that, I'm going to have Scott. Oh, Scott's like, I don't have enough time. Okay. Scott was going to come up and show you how to do site-to-site VPN between Azure and Azure Stack. Since we're out of time for doing that, we'll probably work on getting a video for how to do that. Very, very common hybrid scenario that you need to connect your local app to the other part of your app that's running in Azure. We can do that with self-service network creation that's available in Azure and the Azure Stack. And we can create a VPN that stretches across the cloud and allow you to deliver a hybrid application easily. It was really cool. And we were gonna actually highlight all of the hard work that Rackspace did for us to get these up on the internet, so we could have them accessible, but we'll get to that, I guess, some other time. All right, so next thing I gotta show you is this, let me go back to my, all right, object storage. What's so exciting about object storage? Well, you know, many cloud applications, they take in lots of data and they process that data. In fact, we call it big data for a reason, right? And if you're processing data, that data has to be accessible through a URL so that you can write scripts and code around that. So that's what object storage does for you. We have 3 types of object storage in Azure Stack: blobs, tables, and queues. A table is very, it's like name value pairs, very simple. Queue, you can kind of get the idea. It's a great way of sending information around. And blobs is kind of where you like dump your other stuff, like files and stuff like that. So I've created a blob container, and I just called it pictures, pics. And I can upload things right here in the portal to it if I want. So let me see. I think I got to go to pictures, and let's pick something like my favorite place, and then I'm going to upload it. Okay, while that's uploading, that's going to take a little while. I'll show you the one that I uploaded earlier. One of the things I can do is I can simply go right over here to the properties, and I can click this button to copy that URL. Oh, let me go one more time. See that? That's a URL, right? I can access that through a browser. So let me go ahead and copy that. Let me go over here, and I will show you where I spend my weekends if it comes in. Yay! So you can see again, URL-based object storage where I can have both blobs, tables, and queues available to you in Azure Stack. One of the most heavily used features of Azure available to you inside of Azure Stack. Something that you can't really do with Hyper-V. You have to put these things on file shares, right? That's not like, doesn't have a URL on top of it. This is awesome for cloud development. All right, so next thing I'm going to go through. Oh, I'm almost out of time, aren't I? Okay, I got to show you a couple more things. Do you mind? Okay, let me go for 5 extra minutes, and I'll show you a couple other things. I got to show you one thing that's in the marketplace. All right, I mentioned that we have cloud-ready templates. I don't know about you, but I am not an expert on Hadoop. And I'm not an expert in firewall setup either. But we have some cloud-ready templates available to you in the marketplace that can get you going right away. So let me go over here to developer services. And I just want to zoom in on those. Look it, I have cloud-ready services for things like Hadoop. Or if I'm doing DevOps and I want to do some automation, I have Chef Automate right in there. Or if I wanted to, use the Kemp load balancer, which has some really advanced security and load balancing things that I can't just find in the Azure load balancer, I can deploy that as well. And I just tell you how easy it is, man. I just fill out the form that comes along with it. It's the same set of information that I need if I were to deploy this inside of Azure. And by the way, once I go through the wizard, if I want to automate this over and over again, I can go again and click the view template, and I can see the full automation script for that. So I thank you for staying with me the whole time. I know I'm between you and probably a beer over in the expo hall. I have a lot more to show. I'm really excited about the power of IaaS inside of Azure Stack. If you want to follow me on Twitter, my handle is @darmor_MSFT. I try to tweet a new feature every day. So if you come in and check in on me, you'll learn something new every day that you can do inside of Azure Stack. Thank you very much for coming.